Ladies and gentlemen, we are back for another episode of the Draxx Life podcast, where we'll chat about some of the weird and the wondrous. Let's get to the show. And we're live. This is another episode of the Draxx Life. And yeah, we're back, hitting it like we usually do on Fridays.
Oh, yeah.
What's going on?
I'm in a good mood.
It was funny. Before we even recorded this, he came on with energy. I could feel it. I thought he was going to comment on the brisk fall weather that's kind of like invigorating him with its
it's
powers,
wonderful.
But he's about to go on vacation. I think you're on vacation at this point, right?
Officially has started. Oh, yeah.
And this is birthday vacation as well? No.
No. My birthday, I'm a Virgo.
That's
Virgo
right,
settings.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Bobby Holiday. This is the Bobby Holiday.
I was gonna say
you know
your week long fall festival has begun.
Correct. So remember in Seinfeld where Frank Costanza says, "I'm gonna be in the pool. I'm gonna be in the clubhouse. I'm gonna be all over that shuffleboard court, and I dare you to keep me out." That's the energy that I have right now. You can't stop me because I don't go.
George Costanza energy. Got to put that on a
t-shirt.
Yeah.
No. The Frank Costanza energy. Jerry Stiller.
Yes,
Jerry
yes,
Stiller.
Yes.
And
is that the episode when he's looking for his beach attire? Right?
Yes, because Morty Seinfeld, Jerry's dad, obviously tells him he can't move to Del Boca Vista because he wants to keep him out. He doesn't like him. So he's like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna try to keep me out? We're moving down to Del Boca Vista, baby." Out of spite. Great episode. It's when when Seinfeld and Costanza's parents are like feuding with each other. That's the episode.
Yeah, and they find out that their parents don't like each other. It's like news to them.
Yeah, correct.
So
I don't go.
Go
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you there.
No, it's fine.
I don't. So from today until I don't go back until Monday, November 4th. So we got a lot of time.
Yeah, that's awesome. Actually, that's nice. It's been a long time since you've taken a vacation, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's been. I can't even remember. It's probably summer 2023.
Yeah, so it's game on.
Yeah.
And I know we're kind of going to mention at some point, but you're going to be working on a little mystery project, I believe, during this week-long break.
It will be launched by the end of this break.
So that'll be something we can talk about maybe the next episode or the next episode.
Mm-hmm.
But we have a lot. I know you and I were kind of like talking back Wednesday, Thursday. We got a couple random topics. Actually, we got a lot of topics. So let's just get cracking. Where do you want to begin?
I've decided on my Halloween costume. I've decided it. We
yes
put out a little breadcrumbs last week. I was deciding between James Delaney and you put you walking through. Imagine me walking through Brooklyn, dressed as Tom Hardy in Taboo.
Okay,
you know how cool that would be.
Hold on, I'm pulling up like
the top, the boots, the top hat, the long 3/4 trench coat.
Are you gonna do the face paint like in the?
No.
That'd be intense.
No, I was deciding between that and Howard Hughes because I haven't been Howard Hughes for Halloween yet. So I'm about to say
you were Howard Hughes for something.
Yeah.
I'm Sleep No More.
Correct.
Okay.
I'm gonna send you a photo right now. You look at this shit. So when I was at Sleep No More, I was young Howard Hughes. I kind of look like him actually, and I'm not not being smug about it, but I just sent you a photo.
I'm pulling it up. Let's
I send you. That's how I looked with the suit and the pilot's jacket, the leather pilot's jacket, and the scarf. I had a scarf as well.
Okay, all right.
You see
it? I like it.
But now I think I decided I'm gonna be middle-aged Howard Hughes.
So the one when he's like
with the mustache. Yeah.
That would be cool. I think that would be cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it comes down to it's like, do you want to like be dapper and cool, or do you want to startle and viscerally
like
punch your surroundings?
Yeah, exactly, dude. But I have to hone the accent again because you know how I work on my accents in the shower.
The nice thing
You-
is if you do taboo, you're limited with what you have to say.
yeah, you don't have to say much. I just got to grunt.
Just do a lot of grunting. You go to the bar, people are
Yeah,
like, oh, "Hey, who are you?"
yeah,
Mm,
exactly.
mm.
Mm.
That's all I gotta
He,
do.
he
Howard
is.
Hughes, man, he's gonna have to speak. I don't even know what the Howard Hughes. Where was he from?
He's from Texas, so it's
So you have to do like a Texan. But
yeah,
the Matthew McConaughey
it
could
helps
lead into
exactly.
this accent.
So what I have to do is I have to watch The Aviator one more time because I'm not gonna look like DiCaprio. I'm gonna look like the real Howard Hughes, but I'm gonna try to channel the accent of the DiCaprio Hughes, if that
You
makes
could
sense.
also do the insane Howard Hughes, and then get some fingernails
Uh,
going, get
the
the long
OCD,
hair going,
yeah,
carry with you some pee in a bottle. That
and
would be
yeah,
interesting. You
and
might fit
tissues, a
in certain
box of
parts of New
tissues.
York. Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah. So I'm gonna do middle-aged Howard Hughes, but being James
Or you
Delaney,
decided on that.
yeah.
Okay, cool.
But so I'm gonna go to that party in Brooklyn on Thursday night.
That's
It's
cool.
it's Hocus Pocus themed, by the way. So you
Interesting. I like
know
this.
who, yeah, there's only two types of people that love Hocus Pocus. You know
Okay.
the movie. You know the
Yeah,
movie.
I
I'm
know
saying,
the movie, but who are the two types?
children, obviously, and because that's what the movie was made for.
Yeah.
But mid-20s to 30-year-old women. For some reason, I think I can think
I'd
of the
say even
reasons.
older than that, because
Yeah,
that was a movie of
it's a
our
classic.
childhood.
It's a cult classic, exactly. So yeah, like even into the early 30s, they love Hocus Pocus. They friggin' love it. So you know what I'm talking about.
So,
They love that movie.
what are you telling me? What is the subtext here? There's gonna be a lot of
Um,
ladies at this event.
yes. There's going to be a lot of ladies dressed as witches. It's exactly, and they're going to be wanting to do witchcraft type things. So
Oh.
that's all I'm saying. I'm going. And there's a drinking game involved. I don't know what it is. Like, I guess the movie will be on in the background. That's some
Is
whatever.
this a big is this one of those venues where they let
Yeah,
you know like a couple
it's like a
days?
warehouse. Yeah.
Okay. And do you know the location, or do they tell you like night of, like this
No,
is
I
where we're gonna be?
I know the location.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Very cool. All right, dude. I kind of happy for you. So, for those of you who are
but I
listening to this or will listen to this in the future, one thing you need to understand is that Bobby A, like, he takes dress up for an adult male like very seriously.
dead serious.
Not cosplay like dress up as Iron Man, not to that degree, but like you do put
Yeah,
thought
no.
and effort into creating like subtle characters.
Right. I think that's the best way. That's a good way to describe
I
it.
think that deep down you always wanted to be an actor, and maybe you're just running
Maybe.
away from this desire.
Maybe I should. Maybe I should pursue it. It's never too late. I could go
Dude,
again
it's
and
never too late. You could be like Harrison Ford didn't get his start till his 40s.
there you go. Bingo. So, but to put a bow on this part of the show, I was invited by a lady, so it's one of those. It's the same situation when I was in Sleep No More, which is kind of funny that I'm going to be Howard Hughes again. Because remember the story where I told you one day, audience, I'll tell you the full story. It's like a 20-minute story, so we're not gonna. There's too much to get to today. But the Lady Macbeth. Why didn't I do that? You remember what I'm talking about? Yeah. So
Yeah, I think I remember.
yeah, it's long story short, you will get the full version at some point. I was invited. So there's an urban legend in Sleep No More where you get to interact with Lady Macbeth one on one, and
I think
if
we
you
recorded. I think you talked about this in an episode.
yeah, I
I'm
did,
pretty sure.
and you can go into her chambers, and then things might, if the actress wants to, obviously it's all like if she wants to do it, right? um so I was invited and I turned it down because I was with Katharine Hepburn, was somewhere in the play somewhere. So I was like, I don't know if I could do this. So I think I made the right decision at that time. So let's see what
Interesting.
happens.
It is kind of interesting that like we'll go back into the other topics, but that like a long-standing character, like there's a tradition. So anyone who takes on that role, there's like a lineage or a history of like, okay, you have this power, this you can choose to go down this particular rabbit hole, and I would imagine certain actresses are more apt to take advantage of that, history, and some aren't. It's kind of it's kind of
It's
interesting.
kind of cool, actually. So
Yeah, it's like unlocking like a secret level, and
right,
maybe
That's-
like every few seasons that level gets unlocked.
yeah, yeah. So you nailed it. If
That's cool.
you if for anyone that goes to sleep no more, if Lady Macbeth takes a liking to you, you might want to choose that adventure. You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm gonna say. But I decline, and I still think about that to the day.
Love lost.
It's urban legend.
So it's
It's
love
like
you
a
remember.
musical theater, like Broadway district, theater district, urban legend. But it
Yeah,
is
I mean,
true.
it's like getting invited to a speakeasy, or like you
Yeah,
go through this like secret doorway and you're
correct.
into
Yeah,
like
exactly
the
like that.
secret garden,
Right. Yeah.
figuratively and literally.
Right.
Okay.
So yeah, that's the life
All
update.
right, cool,
That's
man.
for
You have to send me a picture when you're like dressed up. So do you have the hat and everything, like the
yeah,
cowboy hat?
yeah. I got the fedora, the tweed jacket, and the trousers,
Nice.
and the white shirt, and then you got to wear white tennis shoes because he has OCD when he gets older about wearing dress shoes, so he just wears white tennis shoes all the time.
Interesting. Oh, nice. Okay, so you're gonna you're already beginning to study the character.
Yeah, I gotta watch The Aviator one more time. And for the next couple days, I gotta do the accent when I'm cooking in the shower. Just do it over and over.
So anyone who's like around Babier is going to be hearing him subtly practice an accent. It's when I can see
Yeah,
it like going Matthew McConaughey and then slowly transitioning
yeah,
into this new character.
yeah. It's the way of the future. I got it. It's rusty. It's
I was
terrible.
say
Now.
you got to work on that one, my man.
Yeah,
You gotta
it's
work on
rusty. It's terrible. I know.
it. And your date, who's she going to be?
I haven't asked her that yet. That's a good question.
Oh, okay.
So, but presume it's going to be something witchcrafty because the hocus pocus theme. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. All right. So what do we got on the docket for today?
All right. So we got
We had a bunch of
Graham.
things,
We got a lot. We got to.
Let's start with
We got
Graham Hancock,
we
and
got
we'll
Graham
just
Hancock.
try our
Yeah.
best to like not go too far down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Because I want to definitely talk about the UFC because tomorrow should be fun,
This could be awesome.
and we had a couple other things. All right, so yeah, you got a chance to. All right, so anyone who hasn't,
Go ahead.
Let's do a little backstory, just
Set the table.
very briefly. All right,
Yeah.
I'm getting the food prepared.
Yeah.
So Graham Hancock. Graham Hancock's been around for a long time. I would imagine if you're listening to us, you're kind of in the same, the algorithms are sending you the same stuff that we are, right? You're hearing Joe Rogan, you're hearing all sorts of the normal kind of standard people. Graham Hancock wrote a few books. He was a journalist who, I think he did journalism on a variety of things, like very like war, politics, a number of subjects. But at a certain
Mhm.
point, he kind of became obsessed is not the right word, but enamored by this idea that a lot of our ancient history, that we have a total blind spot to like the human story, and that the human story goes back much further in time than we realize or accept, and that human history is far more advanced than we ever believed. So like the common thing you learn in school is that, you go back far enough, it's hunter gatherers, and the further back you go, the more primitive people were. Uh, and pretty much what's become like kind of his life work is to kind of prove that is to some degree inaccurate. That there was, advanced peoples pre-ice age who existed, who created cities, had knowledge, had technology, and that through some type of global cataclysm, this society and all of its knowledge kind of was destroyed, but that there were certain remnants of this people who kind of were able to survive, and like culture in a sense originated there and then spread out through the world. So he would explain that, like,
Right.
why are there pyramids in South America? Did these people just kind of come up with the same idea that existed in Egypt and in other places, or did this remnant of this advanced culture somehow make its way to South America and then conveyed this knowledge, this technology? And that's why we see certain links, right? Certain ideas existing all over the globe. even
Correct.
though all of these people are so diverse and so scattered, they'll have similar stories, similar gods, similar mythology, similar forms of technology.
Yep.
So recently, he's been on Joe Rogan many times, but he recently had a debate with an archaeologist, and they kind of went toe to toe. And yeah, I'm gonna kind of kick. I think that's enough of the setting of the
Yeah. Yeah.
table. So back
So
to you.
that's all of that is bang on, and it's, for instance, just to give an example, it's like the flood theory. Why is there a flood, or not theory, story, fable? Why is there a flood story throughout the world? And his theory would be because every single person on the planet experienced that one cataclysmic event. That's why each of the religions have a flood story. So
And not even religion, culture. I mean, even the Native
cultural, yeah,
Americans,
yeah,
the Native Americans of the North American plains have a story of a man surviving a massive worldwide flood on a boat, right?
yeah.
Like, this is not just a story of the Middle East. This is a story that spans the entire globe. Go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, and it's interesting. Before I jump into the answering or my take on it, they did talk about Giorgio Tsoukalos. Did you notice that?
No,
They
no,
did.
no.
They mentioned him. Someone who I also went to Comic-Con dressed as Giorgio Tsoukalos, and people were like, "Oh, it's like aliens."
Yeah,
Yeah,
for those of you not
yeah.
in the know,
I've done it.
this is the Ancient Aliens TV
Okay.
show, and
Yeah, the guy with the big
the guy
hair.
with the big
Everyone
hair.
is there. Yeah, and they mentioned him. And when they were talking about these world events that link everyone together, like you said, and Joe Rogan is watching, him and Graham are watching a clip, and he's like, "Oh, there's Giorgio." He probably thinks it's aliens. Yeah, this is true. Yeah, that's
Dude, like, I love the meme. It's like, you see this statue?
yeah,
We can't explain it
that-
because it's
because
aliens.
aliens made it. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
that's always
it's
the
always
answer. Yeah,
which is the best scapegoat because it's like there's no Trump on that. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I guess maybe it is aliens.
But it could be. You could. Maybe it is.
Maybe it is. I don't know. It's like,
Yeah.
well, do you have another explanation? And I don't. Maybe you're right. But
But
yeah, go
big
ahead.
up
Go ahead.
Georgia, big up Georgia, my guy, you know. So I did take a. This is I actually have a little bit of knowledge on this um, topic in terms of an archaeological
Ooh,
angle,
all right.
because which is rare because usually we just bullshit about
Pretty
just how we feel, just
pretty
how we feel.
much.
Yeah.
You offer no data, no knowledge.
No, no, it's just parkour, like you always say. I
There
love
we
that.
go.
It's just parkour.
Conversational parkour.
Yeah.
But go ahead, go ahead.
So
Okay, yeah.
I took a class in law school called Cultural Heritage,
Hmm.
and the subtitle was um, the legal implications of excavation and archaeology. So it sounds
Interesting.
cool. It sounds really cool. So I was
Well, I
like,
mean, it
yeah,
is. That is like it. Yeah, go ahead, keep going.
it's awesome. It's like Indiana. It's like being a
Indiana Jones.
lawyer and being Indiana Jones. Exactly. So I took this class, my favorite class in law school, but it's only available to the 3Ls, and 3L means you're in your third and last year in law school. You can't take it in the beginning. You got to take tort law, civil procedure, professional responsibility, etc. If
Yeah,
the legal students will know, or the lawyers now will know, it
the
might
one or
be,
two.
yeah.
That's funny. Your
They'll know
brother.
what they'll know what I'm talking about. You got to take the core classes first, but then I took this as an elective, and essentially the point of the class is kind of what Graham is talking about, and it all ties in. He's more into educating people on the possible origins of
Yeah.
everything, but
Hmm.
this class took the origins and gave a legal angle to it in terms of who owns all these, like who owns the Sphinx in Egypt. They talked about Egypt for a lot, like who owns it. If you find something in the sands of Egypt, does it belong to the Egyptian government? Does it belong to the person who commissioned the excavation? Does it belong
Hmm.
to the explorer that found it?
Yeah.
Same thing with the Amazon. So that's what the class was about. And this was interesting because what he said was, and what I liked the way he phrased it, expertise for Graham, like kind of you alluded to. So for those that don't know, Graham is kind of blacklisted from the archaeological community because they think everything he says is, they call it pseudoscience. They don't like what he says, so they're trying to. It's the classic case of the guy who's investigating things, and the establishment doesn't want the status quo rocked. So
Yeah.
he.
I mean, it's a scenario where you have a layman, in
Yeah.
essence,
Mhm.
versus the the illiterati, the intellectuals, right? The archaeologists, people who are quote unquote should know the answers, and there's friction between these two camps. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly right. So what he said is those experts, those quote unquote experts, what they want to do is they want to monopolize interpretation. So Graham's point of view is, all I'm doing is giving my and others have a different interpretation about what happened in the past. The problem with the established science is they want to monopolize interpretation, which should not be available to be monopolized. Anyone can feel about something and process and have a feeling and interpret something the way they want it. They're not saying it's fact, they're just giving you their thoughts on it.
Yeah.
But even the like you said, the accredited scientists with all the pedigrees and all the Harvard and Oxford degrees, they don't want him in the picture because it'll destroy the narrative that they've created, and some people, it'll essentially subvert the narrative that they've set out.
Yo, so go ahead. I mean, finish your thought, and then I have a question for you.
Yeah, no, that's it. You can go on.
Yeah, so okay, so like just to add some more meat on the bone, and then I have a question, right? So like just for any of you who are not familiar with Graham Hancock, right? So he's been on Joe Rogan many times, and again, every time it's him, it's the same theme, right? He has this life's work now that is like trying to discover like the hidden, not even the hidden, but the lost history of humanity. Let's call it that. And then every episode, he's kind of like that's his like life's work. So he's bringing new angles to it, new discoveries. He's oftentimes illuminating like actual archaeology, like other people who are working and kind of discovering things, and kind of like bringing it to the popular culture, right? Because unless you're in the know in those communities, there might be a discovery that you're not aware of, right? So he's kind of like he's bringing it up, and it goes in line with his kind of his life's work. So recently he did a debate with an archaeologist on Joe Rogan, and I think I listened to some of it. Did you listen to the debate?
I did.
Okay,
I did.
perfect. So he did a debate, and from what I'm gathering and from what things he said, like he felt like he had lost that debate, like the archaeologist brought up all of these details. I'm going to put science in quotes, like these scientific explanations, these different quote unquote facts that like he felt in the moment kind of refuted his like how he was interpreting like his data, like all of the evidence and stuff he's been kind of espousing. This is Graham Hancock. And then it's interesting. I was talking to Henry Chan about this blast from the past. There's like after that debate, there were a lot of other YouTubers that are kind of in the I don't know, archaeology, the same space as Graham Hancock, that started to go through all of the facts,
like independent researchers, basically.
Yeah, exactly. People who maybe this is just an interest and whatever. Like they started to kind of pull the thread on a lot of the quote unquote facts that the archaeologist was using to refute Graham Hancock's perspective. And they were starting to refute them. They were just like, no, that's like actually not true. Like that's a lie in essence. So somehow this all came up actually, and Joe Rogan invited Graham Hancock back because now they're kind of commenting on, hey, you didn't really lose that debate because this guy, this archaeologist, this scientist actually like lied to make his point.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Yeah. So my question was like, all right, dude, why do you think, why would you lie? Like, why, if you're an archaeologist, what is the fear in Graham Hancock's perspective? And it's not just Graham Hancock, guys. Like, this is not just like some random guy. No, it's like he's kind of the voice because he's a writer vocalizing ideas that other people who are maybe not good at kind of articulating them, like other discoveries. He's just kind of bubbling it up to the surface so that us random people can actually hear these ideas. Like, so it's not just him, some random quack. It's like, no, he's the tip of the spear, and there's a lot of other people that are kind of supporting this idea.
Yeah.
But like, why is it that like all of these people hate him so much or attack him? What are they afraid of? The idea that he proposes to the world. That's my question for you.
It's a good question. So yeah, good. So let's not Graham Hancock, like you said, it's not some random guy. He has geologists that are backing what he's saying. So he has scientific or people in the scientific community that are on his side as well. They're just not as prominent as the mainstream, like Flint Dibble is.
He's the voice. Like, that's how I put it. It's like he's the voice of a counter idea. He's not the inventor of the idea. He's just the voice, which is like sometimes you need someone who can speak and articulate ideas that you discover, but you just don't have the means, the technique, the ability to bring to the world.
Yeah, exactly. The man got a show on Netflix, like talking about all this in multiple seasons, and
Exactly.
there's a third season in negotiation right now. So to answer your question, I think a lot of it is egotistical. When you go through all that academic route and get your PhD and spend all that time and money and energy studying, and then you have this guy who just did all his independent research and studying himself, and now he's the most popular person in that space in terms of I would say ancient architectural things, and the young, what is it called, the younger, I always forget, the younger Dryas, the younger Dryas theory, which he didn't, like you said, he didn't create, but he's a proponent of. And imagine, so think of it in the an analogy would be in the medical profession. Imagine going to undergrad, studying chemistry and bio, being an undergrad medical student, then going to med school, then doing your residency, then becoming a doctor. And you got some random guy who knows more than you about medicine. It's going to hit the ego a little bit. Am I wrong?
No, I mean that. I guess that's a good question. Is it ego? Is that the reason?
I think it's part of it. It's an element of it, but it's not the whole thing. So that's one element.
Because it's not like it's not like what is the Matt Damon movie when he's like a genius?
Good Will Hunting.
Yeah, it's not a Good Will Hunting scenario where it's like you're in college, study math, and here's the janitor who's like the greatest mathematician.
Right, it's a little bit like that.
Right, but it's kind of not, because it's like they don't agree on at least in those situations you can be like, oh, dude, he solved the problem. Like, the math is right. You're just better than me, and you shouldn't be better than me because you're a janitor. Like, this is a case where it's like they think he's a quack. Yeah. Or is that a deception? Like, really, they're like, it's more of just ego. Like, I'm mad that in archaeology you get more followers in quotes than I do, and I went through I'm an actual archaeologist. I have it on my resume, like the ego aspect. But you know what I mean? Like, they don't agree with how he's interpreting like the history of humanity.
Mm-hmm. But that's something that science, I think, at least the science that's available to us from the research I've done, you can't concretely answer that yet.
Yeah, I agree.
So why are they being that egotistical? I think part of it is ego, but a part of it is also monetary. Always follow the money. If Graham Hancock is getting commissioned by Netflix to make all these shows, you got people, I'm not singling out Flint specifically, but people of his ilk, they're like, oh, why can't I have a show on Netflix talking about archaeology and get all these views and get to travel around the world on some and all paid expenses and explore things? I went to school for this. I got the degrees. I wrote all the dissertations. Why does this guy get to do all the things? So you see what I'm saying? There's jealousy, there's ego, there's jealousy, there's money involved, but there's also, I think some of them truly believe that the established science is it's the right answer, quote unquote, right answer. And what he's saying is just nonsense. So it's like a pot of all of that.
I'm
What do you
trying to
think?
find. Well, one thing I was gonna say, 'cause I'm trying to find this detail. So, like, I remember I read in a book at one point, like Troy, right?
They talked about that actually.
Oh, did they? Okay, maybe
Yeah.
they'll support. Maybe my
Mm,
memory's correct.
mm,
Yeah, so like Troy for a long period of time was considered by the like scholars as a fictitious place. Like it existed in the Iliad and the Odyssey, but it really wasn't a real place. Like it was part of mythology. And then if I recall, the site was excavated by like a non-archaeologist, like someone who yeah, here I have it right here. Let's see if I
mm.
can find it. So I can find it.
Yeah.
Henrik. Let's see if
Yeah,
Henrik.
they did. So while you're finding that, they did. I'll let you know they did
Yeah,
talk
here,
about
hold on a second.
Troy as an example of
Yeah,
like a misguided science.
correct,
Okay.
exactly. Like they believe that it was not a real place. And then I'm looking. This guy named Johann Ludwig, German name.
Mhm.
He's like five names, like Ludwig Heinrich Julius Schliemann. He was a
That's the most German name of all
yeah,
time.
Johann Ludwig Henrik Julius Schliemann. And I'm pronouncing it. But I butchered it for anyone who's German. I apologize. But he was a German businessman and amateur archaeologist. And he was like, he believes, it says he was an advocate of the historicity of places mentioned in the works of Homer. So essentially, it was like all of the actual archaeologists, the people with it on their, business card, thought this is like this Homer. This is a place. It's part of a story. It's not real. And then a guy said, no, I believe. Like, why would he describe this place? Like, I believe this is a real place. And he was a businessman, and he started to excavate based off of the description of the place in Homer, like in stories, and discovered it. And now Troy's a real place. Like we can say there were Trojans, like Troy existed. And maybe the whole story of like the Trojan horse was a real event. It wasn't just mythological.
Hmm.
So like that's kind of like it shows you like there's like the hubris, right? Like in the people who are interacting with Hancock and people of his ilk, it's like I asked the same question to myself. I don't know the answer. It's like ego. I think ego is definitely part of it. It's like who are you, man? Like I've studied this so well. I da 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 da.
Hmm.
That's part of it. I
Yeah.
think there's also the ego or the hubris that like people of the past are inferior to us, and
Uh,
his view of things is like kind of the opposite of that, right? They're like it's kind of interesting that most ancient peoples believed that the past, people of their past, were more advanced and glorious than they are now. That like humanity is decreasing, not increasing in like capacity. Right? Most cultures are like that. Like they believe that the people before them were like gods, like heroes, that like people like Hercules that could do these epic
hmm.
wondrous things, right? And that like people now can't do those things, right? Like the past was lifted up. Whereas I think now there is a cultural shift, which has existed all our lifetime, of like our telling. Sorry, there's some people doing construction. Our telling of the past is that like people were primitive, cavemen, had very little culture, knew nothing about the world, uh, and essentially the light of reason has only dawned in like the last like 100 or so years or whatever, right? And I think that is like an underlying what's the word I'm thinking? Not stereotype, but prejudice that
Mm.
then clouds all of your viewing and retelling of history, right? Like think about it, like the Sphinx, which is discussed on Joe Rogan show many times, right?
Mhm.
Like there is now the view that the Sphinx is very old, much older than anticipated, and that actually there is another image underneath what we see of the Sphinx.
Yeah.
And again, I think it's like people to believe that you have to view the people of that time as far more advanced than maybe you're comfortable admitting. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I see
I'm
what you're
rambling.
saying. No, I got a couple things to say. First of all, you know what the answer is. It's the aliens did it.
Aliens,
Come on.
of course, of course.
That's the. But on a serious note, there is decent evidence that the Sphinx. It's not even anticipated. It's that the established archaeology thinks they dated it to, I think it's like I don't even know, like 6,000 years. I could be way off on that, but it's not beyond the threshold of the Dryas, which was 12,000 years. Um, and Graham is saying the Sphinx is way older than
Yeah.
what all the mainstream thinks it is. Now think about that. And you hit a notion earlier that said, so what we think are the current scientists. And it sounds like we're shitting on scientists right now, but I don't mean to do it. I happen to like this type of a theory
Well, and hold
because
on before you go, keep going.
I like that. I like anything that questions the current status
Yes.
quo in terms of just making you think critically. Yeah. So
Well,
I'm
and the one thing I want to add on is like I do think that we like I mean not we I don't like to
yeah,
speak for other people,
yeah.
but like I think science can get too liberally used. Like archaeology is like somewhat interpretation and somewhat you use scientific techniques, right? You know what I mean? It's not the same as like I'm going to put these chemicals together and like I can study every aspect of it and I can see and I can look at it under a microscope like right you do take things on faith and that's why at certain time it's just like Troy, right? The scientists, the archaeologists, if archaeology is really classified as a science, believed one thing and then were proven that that thing was wrong,
Mhm.
right? Because they dug something up and they saw it and it's like, oh shit, it's there. So again, I think it's like with archaeologists, I think sometimes they can hide that they are scientists, but they're like it's a combination. They're like a historian meets like using certain scientific techniques, technology, but they're also like interpreting like literature, right? Because Homer was literature, and then there you find out oh there's some truth here. So again, it's like it's not a black and white thing. It takes more gray. It takes more artistic interpretation. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong to say that.
No, I might disagree a little bit, but I understand what you're saying. I get you.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
I'm not vocalizing that
Yeah.
clearly enough. But go ahead. Go ahead with your point.
So, but when you said in the beginning, I do agree with where the, currently today, the professionals in the field think the past is all primitive in nature. So they couldn't possibly have done the things that people like Graham Hancock said they have. Where he's of the belief that we reached this point already in humanity. It just got wiped out by some giant otherworld. It is
Yeah.
otherworldly actually event that destroyed everything and wiped out all information and all recording, and then we had to reset. It was a full like factory reset of everything. We already the point we're at right now in 2024 was already reached already, and maybe even exceeded. Whereas the scientists were like, no, impossible. Everything was dull and primitive back in the. So that I think that's at the core of what they're
Yes.
arguing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. And again, like that would base off of how you view where I guess it's like based off how you view yourself in the timeline, that is going to inevitably affect how you view the past and what the past is capable of. I mean, dude, it's like I think you and I talked. Was I talking to Henry about this? But like, think about like use the Bible and use like the Sumerians, which is a big topic on like ancient aliens, right? Like how those cultures interpreted the people of the ancient past was almost like a very advanced human species that was capable of almost like magical things.
Yeah, the Anunnaki, baby.
Correct. Exactly. So it's like if there's a glimmer of truth to those stories, it means that our whole interpretation of the past is very, very different,
Yeah,
right?
it changes everything.
Also, the people from both those stories lived long. So imagine very smart people that could live longer than we could. Who knows the society that they could create for better or for worse? Like, I'm not saying it's a good society. It's just saying it's like, it's almost, it takes an arrogance to believe that they couldn't do things. If they have the same brain we have, essentially, they have the same brain, same capacity, same, 10 fingers, 10 toes. who knows what they could create, right? But if you view that society as primitive, I don't know why you could be so confident with that. Then it's like, all right, they just like they didn't know anything, but we know. Therefore, we're the ones that can clearly
Yeah,
analyze the past.
yeah. It's an there's an arrogance to it.
I think
Correct.
that's what it is, dude. I think maybe that's I'm answering my question. It may just be pure arrogance.
Yeah. No,
But anyway,
I'm with that. All right, and to this point, to land this point, they tell a good story when the Spaniards first started exploring South America. Um, when they came in, what's that guy's name? I forgot the explorer's name.
Cortez,
No, it wasn't Cortez. Cortez came and just laid waste to everyone. This guy was actually trying to, oh, I forgot his name. Yeah,
they're not when they were looking for El Dorado.
no. They were just coming to just explore, and they went from the Pacific side of the of South America all the way through to the Atlantic side. I forgot his
Coronado.
name. Like, yeah, yes,
There we
exactly.
go. Now
Coronado.
we look up
Yeah,
Spanish explorers. Go ahead.
Coronado. That's it. And he went through, and it wasn't there was no Amazon jungle there. He said the reports, which were dismissed by the Spanish monarchy, the the reports that he delivered were there's like these rich, lavish, advanced cities all
Yeah,
over South America. And then when Cortez came and gave everyone diseases, they all died from diseases. Once all the cities in South America were abandoned, essentially because almost the entire population died from the disease brought by the Europeans. That's when the Amazon jungle started to grow, and it became. And now, because it's such a thick, rich rainforest, you can't. It's so hard to explore because there's places you can't even get to physically,
yeah.
and so all the evidence is buried in the jungle because after everyone was wiped out, either by war or disease, not even war, by just
Disease. Yeah, yeah,
massacre or disease, they the jungle covered up all the evidence. So, which
yeah,
I could see happening.
yeah. He said something I thought was very interesting. Was that like that from his perspective, and I guess from his interpretation, like the Amazon's actually a garden, like a human cultivated
Yeah, yeah,
garden, which is kind of a crazy idea. And I think he said because the what? How did he determine that? It was based off of the amount of vegetation, trees that are specifically of use to human beings, like food plants, medicinal plants, like the percentage of like human oriented vegetation versus just kind of like I'm gonna say random was like you don't find that kind of like naturally growing in that type of distribution. Like like he like that it was a cultivated garden, and that yeah, I think he said the explorers like they described it in that way. Like
yes,
these were cities within a cultivated, beautiful garden
yes.
that was being tended to.
Hmm.
But when you stop tending to the garden goes wild essentially, and that's what we have. Like the Amazon rainforest is like not really a rainforest; it's a human-made and cultivated and controlled garden that was part of the lifestyle of these massive. I think they said they threw like there was probably
Yeah, man.
millions of people pre-European settlers in like North and South America,
Oh, definitely.
like
I actually think it's true.
advanced cultures.
Yeah. Yes. And it got swallowed, like you said. Once everyone was gone, that man-made garden swallowed up everything and became the jungle. So.
Yeah, but dude, you know what? I'm gonna ask you this question, then we can change subjects. This is gonna be like a hot button topic, yo. But you gotta wonder, right? Like if you believe in like providence or like divine retribution, like right when the Spaniards came, if I'm not mistaken, I'm piecing this together from obviously like other podcasts, right? Like the Aztecs they I like the one word he used, Graham Hancock used. There was one community near them, and he said that they were like a human. What he grew, like a human farm. Like he grew. They harvested them for human sacrifice.
It's crazy.
Right. And like, you got to want, like, and he said this on another episode. It's like when the Spanish came, the people around the Aztecs saw them as like, thank God, like they saw them as essentially a solution to the problem of the Aztecs, because the Aztecs just harvested people. And it's like, it's kind of interesting. Like, you think about it, you see certain like cultures of like ancient cultures of like the Near East, Africa, and Mesopotamia area. Dude, human sacrifice was a big thing, and it kind of showed, like, it's kind of interesting, like, and there's pyramids and there's human sacrifice, and it's like two different vast parts of the world. You wonder if that idea, like, where did the people come from that populated South America, and did they bring like a Near East idea, like the pyramids and stuff like that, with them?
Yeah,
And then like, can you imagine living in a world where the nearest population, like the big man, like you saw Apocalypto, right?
yeah,
The advanced culture of that area periodically, like a freaking, I'm trying to think of like a apocalyptic movie, go out and like go on raids where literally it's like, we're gonna go get people to go slay on our pyramids, and we need a lot of them because we do it a lot.
yeah. We
And if
need.
you're living around them, you're like, oh shit, the Aztecs are coming. And like, you know that like, we're not going to get enslaved. This is
Yeah,
not war. Like, they're harvesting us because they're going to like pull our hearts out on
yeah.
top of their pyramids. Like, crazy place to exist.
It is wild, and the justification in their mind was, this is a gift to the gods.
Correct.
So
This is how we maintain. I mean, I'm
yeah,
assuming this is how we maintain our power. This is how we beseech our blood god, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's
yeah.
definitely crazy.
No, what a wild time the Middle Ages were. Oh, especially once. I wish we knew a lot more. Maybe we will one day. I don't know. We knew a lot more about the time of exploration, because that, when the British Empire and Spain were, and because I think we know more about the Romans. I could be wrong, but we know more about the Romans and the Persians than we do about what happened in like the middle of the jungles of Central and South America. I
Oh
could be
yeah,
wrong.
I think 100.
Yeah,
I mean, because again, it's like our knowledge of the past is almost entirely based on written accounts.
and they could have been doctored by whoever
I
was
mean,
in
they could be
charge.
doctored, but again, it's not even that. It's just like things get burnt, like paper deteriorates,
You
right?
just lose it. Yeah,
So
fair.
it's like not even that there's like a conspiracy. It's
Yeah.
just like, so if you're a culture that doesn't have a strong written practice,
Which the Romans did have. That's why.
which they did
Yeah,
have, the
yeah,
Greeks
yeah,
had,
yeah.
the Chinese
Yeah.
have,
Correct,
like
correct. Yeah,
you like your account of history, like no one know, unless you leave a message, no one knows, right? So like if you have a non, it's like the Native American culture, right? I don't think they really had a written culture. They had an oral tradition. But if, let's say,
yeah,
all of them die, there goes no other people is ever going to know anything about you, which is not true of like the Romans, right? Like, we dig up things, we find documents, we find things, and then we can piece together. And I think that's kind of why, like, I say archaeology is kind of like, who am I to say this, but like, to say that you're like you're part of the hard sciences is like, it's false, because you're limited based off of what you can discover. But you could discover something, some document hidden in some cave, that completely undoes like all of your previous beliefs, right? It's like, that's why I feel like if you're okay, you should be in a constant state of like, yeah, I don't know, like maybe like we think this is what it was like, but tomorrow we could find something that completely changes the game. So like that to me is kind of like, it's like the hubris. Like, for example, and then we can change topics.
mm-hmm.
Like, we go to school. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn here. So like, anyone listening can look this up. But like, right, we're taught books, like ancient books. Like, you can take a class where you read like Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, or some document from Julius Caesar about
Yeah,
the German conquest, and etc. Fill in the blank, like,
yeah,
all these ancient texts. And we, like, you're taught them, right? And it's kind of funny because there's like a whole, like, or like the Greek, some of the Greek philosophers, but like, our belief in those documents is only based on like right? The validity of them is based on like how many primary sources have we dug up
It's true.
that we've pieced together to make this document. And it's kind of surprising when you look up, you can find this stuff. It's like not as many as you would think. Like if you looked up and found like how many meditations do we have in existence? It's probably not nearly as many as you think. Yet like we have like, oh, we believe this to be truth. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of an interesting thing, right? Because that's kind of like to me how history is. Like it's kind of this patchwork quilt, and there's certain areas that maybe are like there's holes in certain places, and then there's certain places that are more dense. Like we found more documents, we found more artifacts, so we have a clearer picture. There's still some holes, and then there's whole sections that are like entirely like open, like a puzzle, right? It's like some parts, the corner is all done, and then we have these chunks that
Yeah,
are
yeah, yeah.
missing. And I think you have to be like without ego and say, you know what? Like we have a very unclear picture. Certain points maybe are more clear, but others are like completely like a void. And be like honest about it and just admit that. Whereas I think some of these people are just unwilling to admit that. Like the
Hmm.
hubris is like, no, we have a really clear picture. It's like, nah, dog, you don't. The world's big. It's been around a while. There's no way you have a completely clear. We don't know what happened to Kennedy, and Kennedy died in like the 60s. So you're telling me you understand what happened 5,000 years ago? Like, get out of here, man. Anyway, all right.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's why I like we can just call this monopolizing interpretation. That's what they're trying to
Yeah.
do. So, but let's get.
Yeah,
You're
let's
a
switch
good
it up.
person to talk to about this because they jumping from that same conversation that they had. You're a spiritual man, yeah, and
Yeah.
they talk a lot about um at one point in the conversation it bends into how people view death because they
Mm-hmm.
talked about the Spaniards coming in and laying waste, yeah, so they talk a lot about death. And we've talked about this on this show before as well, where I think death, there's nothing final about death, it's just a transformation. And Graham kind of alludes to that, where he says in the end, like the notion of the soul, I'm interested to hear your, because I don't think I've ever directly asked you, what do you think? Because I think when someone perishes, the actual human form, there's still a conscious existence somewhere. I'm not saying it's heaven, purgatory, hell. I'm not with that side. I just think you're somewhere floating in the universe, but you're still around. But what do you think? What's your take on death not being truly the end of your consciousness? That's a
Yeah.
hard.
So,
That's a big question.
yeah. And,
Yeah.
and maybe this will be a good,
Yeah.
like, we can even talk about this more
Yeah.
in depth one day.
Yeah.
Cause it's a interesting just to see like different cultures throughout time, how they viewed this subject that all human beings, right? All human beings die. So like every culture kind of has had to approach
Yeah, like
this
an
this
afterlife
question.
thing. Yeah.
I mean, for me, I think I come from like I would say like a Judeo-Christian perspective. So like that perspective is like, yeah, this is not final. Really, the best way to look at it is like you have a start, but you don't have an end,
Hmm.
right? Like you have a start, but you don't have an end. Now the end, there's kind of a punctuation mark, a comma, where like this physical form will end for time, at least from like a Judeo-Christian perspective. But like in essence, like you exist, like everyone, good or bad, is like an eternal creature. It's just a question of like what that eternity will look like depending on certain circumstances. So like that is like the old, like that is kind of like the, I think that you could say that that is like the Judeo-Christian perspective, right? Like there is no real end. It's just a question of what that eternity looks like based off of certain factors. And I think like I'm open to that. I remember I talked to Deshaun at one point. Do you remember Deshaun
I do.
from the
You.
Apple Store?
Yeah.
He was an interesting guy. He, you wouldn't think this, but I think he went to seminary school. Like he was very like,
he
I don't want to say
was.
spiritual is not the right word, but like he invested time into kind of like pulling the thread on some of these ideas. And I remember once, I forget what we were talking about, And like I don't even know how the conversation came up, but he was like, yeah, he's like death is just like the next. He's like, it's just a gateway, right? It's just that's it. Period. Like he said it in such a like a firm,
like
confident,
matter of fact
unquestionable
way.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember it struck me. I was like, oh, dude, like that's someone who has faith. Like I'm not even saying what he believed that gateway was to, but just the fact that like he could clearly state without like any like lack of surety, like no, like it's just the next, like it's just the beginning of another chapter. Um, I think that I can say that part confidently. Like I don't think this is it. I don't think it is it. Maybe it's like my hubris. Maybe it's like I don't want to think it's it. But every culture, like point out a culture to me. Like if we look at our previous conversation, the ancient peoples were not dumb. They were not cavemen. They were had wisdom, had knowledge, and maybe if we look at Graham Hancock, more knowledge than we do, right? None of the
Yeah.
ancient cultures that we know of, I don't think, believed this was the end. Up until recently, right? Like it's our kind of modern hubris that we're like, nah, man, like that you have the idea that this is the end, that there's nothing left. It's just void. No, they're not even void. It's just like you'll cease to be like a purely humanist perspective, right? Like this
Yeah.
is it, guys. Like anyone who thinks that there's more to this, there is no. It's just your meat and electricity.
Yeah.
That's it. Period. Like that's a modern idea. Like
I
that
know.
idea ain't been around that long. It's maybe 100 years, 150 years. Maybe you find pockets of that, but like ancient peoples, any religion I'm aware of, weird religions, more traditional religions, like that, it wasn't it, right? That's why we find burials where people bury like things that the person would need in the afterlife.
Yeah.
Not saying that they were right or wrong. It's just saying like they believe that this something else was happening. There was going to be another chapter. So it's like, to me, I think you can't look at that idea and be like, oh, they're idiots. Like, no. If every culture believed that there's something, then the question just becomes, okay, well, what are the details? Like, what is that something? What is that place? How do I get to that place? How does this lifetime in this, body affect positively or negatively what that place will look like? Those are the details. But I think the idea that like this is it, um, I think it's a new idea. I think it takes more hubris to believe that than the opposite.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's a very pedestrian way to look at that. You're born as a baby. Granted, nothing tragic happens. You die when you're older, and that's it. Nah, it can't be. It's like it's because there's so much evidence to the contrary, like you're saying, in terms of cultural beliefs. Obviously, there's no physical evidence of it, but in terms of what everyone believes all over the world, there's something more to this now. But what I would tell you, what if there is no start? What if you always existed?
Well, so it's funny.
There's no start or end.
I guess it comes down to like a semantic question, because like I remember I was talking to my pastor. I listened to it. He said, before you existed here, you existed. This is from a Christian perspective. You existed in the mind of God, right? If God knows all things and everything is if he knows all, if he is God, right? God by philosophical definition, he knows all, and any concept or idea existed in his mind before anything else. Then yeah, you never had, and God is eternal. Then that means you've always existed. Maybe as an idea, maybe as the spirit of what would come. Those are that's what I call the mystery, right? It's like that is certain things are mystery. To me, it's like I think it's foolish to discount the mystery. Like that's why when I hear people like, not that I'm to bend the subject slightly, but like for me, as I've gotten older, I just like listen to people who are so confident in their views. Like you hear people, and I'm not trying to be scientists, but like you hear people who are like, it's often people who are scientists, like but like no, like and they'll throw so much shade or discredit in such like, you'll have like a Sam Harris, or he'll say like, comment derisively of like all religions, and it's like, dude, you're a blip on the human map. Like your lifetime, you'll exist and fade away. And how do you have the audacity to like just say like I, in my limited period of time on this planet, can say beyond a reasonable doubt that all of these ideas are just fallacy, flawed. Like
Yeah,
to me, it's like the arrogance of that.
yeah.
It's arrogant.
So let me interject here. I called you out amusingly in the comments
Oh
of the
yeah, yeah.
video. I think that's why you don't like Bill Maher, because he's that same way. He's
And
just
it's not you. Yeah, it's not even that he's an atheist. It's that he is a.
he's more of a religion, like he hates on religion.
It's not
And
even that. It's like to me, I hate anyone who cannot is. Yes, you're not wrong,
yeah,
but it's more subtle than that. It's like I hate someone that can say like beyond a reasonable doubt. Like, dude, Bill Maher, who are you, dude? You read periodically when you have time. You're a celebrity. You're an entertainer. You're a comedian. To say that you can just like wave a hand and be like, "Oh, these people are so dumb." It's like, dude, the hubris on you, man. Like the sack on you, bro. Like, who are you? Are you
yeah, I
inventing
knew it.
anything? Are you building anything? Like, shut up, man. Like, you don't know anything. I I go
I
back to
knew it.
like
Yeah,
I go back to it's like what is the old Socrates story where he's like, he realized he knew more than everyone else because he knew he didn't know anything. And every time he'd go talk to someone, they would eventually very quickly segue from what they were good at to like they thought that because they were good at X, they could then comment on Y. So he'd go to like a woodworker who's the best woodworker in town, and he's like, "This guy's is great. He must have some wisdom." And then the woodworker's like commenting on like you know how to bake bread, and it's like, dude, you're a woodworker. You're the best woodworker, but that doesn't make you good at commenting on what the baker does. And then you go talk to the baker, and the baker is the best baker, and he has a comment on how the brick maker makes bricks. You know what I mean? It's like
Mhm.
it's hubris, right? It's like thinking that you're good at one thing means that gives you an overarching expertise in the world. And I think that's what we see that a lot, right? You have someone who's like very good at one thing and then they're making comments on like how to cure world hunger. It's like, dude, you sell things on a website, e-commerce. How do you know like these are two different things? Stay in your lane. You could have
Mhm.
an opinion, but like have some humility as well. I guess that's my point. Like when I
Yeah.
hear people who are that have no humility and are unwilling to admit that they don't know things, like that's why with the podcast, I try to like not speak for other people. I think we do a good job at that. Like I try not to say we because I'm like I don't know, and I try to admit I don't know. Like I'm not an expert. I'm not reading books on these subjects all the time. I have an opinion, but like there's a difference between an opinion and someone being like hand waving religion. What do these people know? Or what does this person know? Or what is this? What do plumbers know? What do they know about what's going on in like politics? Like to me, it rubs me the
Yeah.
wrong way.
Yeah, no, I feel you. Um, I
Sorry, it
disagree.
grinds my gears.
I disagree with you because I obviously I think I mean I don't mean to offend anyone, but I
Hmm.
think I agree more with Bill Maher than with Chris Corvo. But it's not that I can't hear you out and understand it. Yeah, I get it.
You can
But
agree with
yeah,
his perspective,
yeah,
but that's two people agreeing on like it's like two people that share a similar opinion.
yeah.
But a lot of times these people don't say like this is my opinion. It's saying that like
Like
no,
he's calling you stupid, basically.
the world is this way. It's like,
Yeah,
well, no, 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 you don't know that. Like, don't like just slow your roll, bro. Like, you have an opinion. Like, it's just like saying we could disagree on the afterlife. Like, I mean, I'm not gonna like say you're an idiot, right? Like, you could be right. I could be wrong. I feel like some of these people, though, they're unwilling to admit. Like, you listen to Bill Maher. It's very rarely, and this is not even about like religion, like any topic. Like when he talks to someone, a lot of times when he talks to them, his mind is already made up, and like he even speaks to them as if like they have to do the job of proving like his belief wrong. Like it's not like I'm approaching it's like, all right, like well, let me hear what you got to say. Like I'm kind of open minded. It's kind of like my mind is made up, but I'll give you like your 30 seconds to like climb the mountain, and
Uh,
maybe I'll admit that I might be open to your viewpoint. Like I
okay.
can find
Yeah,
examples. But
yeah,
anyway,
yeah, yeah. There's a smugness level to it.
like
Yeah,
where you listen to Joe Rogan who has opinions, obviously.
Yeah, but he's
But
more
like
open-minded. I would
he's
agree with
usually
that.
like, all right, dude, like let's talk about it. Like,
Right.
all right, I press you on this point, press you on that point.
Yeah.
But like, I'm not gonna make you climb a mountain just to have a conversation.
Yeah. That's I get what you're saying. All right, but speaking of this, so this is an interesting jump off point. So in terms of spirituality and souls and religion, I'm going to tell you something that I think I believe, and you tell me how you would interpret that. Yeah, obviously.
Okay.
Give me so
I give
yeah.
you a lot of credit, man. You're doing a lot of prep, which is nice.
Yeah. I so speaking of like, because I've been thinking a lot. That episode gave me like so many ideas about a lot of things, um, which is why I love I love Graham Hancock, but I'm not gonna be like a blindly support him, right? Like there's some things, if he got it wrong, I would admit, yeah, he got it wrong, but I think he's more right than he is wrong. So what do you think about in terms of the eternity of the soul? I've just, for lack of a better term, your consciousness is a quote unquote soul. That's how I'm going to use it. What do you think if just your human life is just an exercise in choices? Meaning, did you leave the world a better place when you left than when you arrived? And we're confronted with a lot of choices here, and human life is just like a Darwin natural selection of your soul. You see what I'm trying to say? I think that might be too deep.
No,
Go
no, I
ahead.
think I
Yeah,
get you.
you get.
So
So
I get
what if
okay.
your human life is just, it's almost like an exercise, not a test, not an exam, but like an exercise in making the right choices so you can leave this existence better than you came into it.
Um, I mean, I think that's not like. I think that idea is. Let's think about that for a second. We're gonna talk, ladies and gentlemen. We're gonna talk a little more today. This is a little longer episode. Um,
Yeah, this is a wild question, but I've been thinking about
I
this.
mean, I think a lot of. I think that idea is not
Mhm.
like a new idea, and I would say like. Again, I'll give you like my perspective from like a Judeo-Christian perspective, and then other cultures. Like, right, in a sense, like that's like you could say that's in Buddha, right? Like karma, right? You are here going through this kind of, I want to say, battle against yourself, and in that perspective, like if you can win the race, you can break free of like the cycle of rebirth, right? And that's what kind of like leads you into, becoming one with, I'm going to say, the force, for lack of a better word, and like freeing yourself from suffering, right? So like, that idea is kind of there, right? Like you see that idea there playing out, like, right, what is, like in the Buddha, right? It's like, you have all of these things, you have passions, you have desires, and they inevitably lead to suffering, and like part of it is like being
Yeah.
able to relinquish those desires through the middle way, if I'm, kind of my elementary understanding of
Yeah.
Buddhism, right? And then like if you can win that race, you can be free of the cycle, and freedom in that is like not wanting anymore, right? You like you're absorbed into, let's say, the force, and like you don't want, like, because want leads to pain and want leads to suffering, and like if you can free yourself from that, you're kind of in bliss, right? I think that's the goal.
Yeah.
But your choices here affect that, right? Because if you have bad karma, you do harmful things, you suffer
Yeah.
because of desire and things like that,
You
then
hurt other people. Yeah.
yeah, you're going to go through that cycle over and over and over again until potentially you break free of it through like that middle way, which I think is only one of many ways, but that's the way of the Buddha. Or you keep going through the cycle. So like your actions here, the goal is to break free, and your actions will have a consequence. So I think that's true. Um, I think in like Judeo-Christian, like that's true too, right? Like your actions here, like your actions here matter and I mean, I think matter, and we can delve into it in more detail somewhere, but like your actions matter, right? And that like
Mm-hmm.
this is not it. So there's, if you're here for 80 years, but your soul is eternal, indefinite, right? We have a period, but we don't have an ending punctuation mark. We have a start but no end. Then like this is a blip on the map,
Mm-hmm.
right? So this period here has a purpose, but like in the long run, like you're gonna spend more time not in this existence, but in another existence. So like this point here is, yeah, it's like a battleground, a purification period.
Oh,
I think you could find.
like a filtering process almost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a filtering in more ways than one, right? Like,
Yeah.
because from that perspective, not everyone is going to go. There's the chaff and the wheat, but even the wheat, or like even silver needs to go through a period of fire in order to become like purified silver or purified gold.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that life here is in a sense that time period.
Right, because that's a great point because I've and maybe this is what triggered that's in my
Yeah.
brain
Why did you?
where
Why were you kind of like
because I've
what?
been reading stuff that said that because I if you ask me what I personally believe, I
Mhm.
do think that we are eternal. I mean, mushrooms, DMT, and ayahuasca. Shout out to that. Has I've seen it. Like you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
But
man.
that's a
You
whole nother
tasted it.
episode.
Yeah.
I've experienced like a just an hors d'oeuvre, an
Yeah.
aperitif, just a small sampling, and it's the reason why I said it's filtration is there's only certain amount of consciousness is that's not even a word, but I just made it up.
Hmm?
Consciousness is souls. That's quote unquote that are able to continue the journey of eternity based on what they've done with the gift of being a human being and to live this life. So you see what I'm saying? It's like any kind of filter in like a pool, a drain. It doesn't matter. There's the people that do it. Sometimes it's random. You'll get some random people slipping through the cracks, but this is a way to ensure if you make the world a better place than when you left it. It doesn't have to be some huge like philanthropy type thing, but if you just come into the world and you do good and you make it better than the way you came in, it's almost like all right, now you get to experience the rest of the journey.
Mm.
So I don't know, man. It's heavy. That's this is, as Matthew McConaughey would say, that's heavy shit,
Yeah, it's an
man.
interesting
Yeah,
thought. I
yeah.
mean, we can delve into it at some point. Like, it might be interesting to do like a survey of like religious ideas or religions,
Yeah.
where like you, me, and Joe kind of like, all right, this week we're going to talk about like Buddhism. One week talk about Islam,
I think we
Christianity,
should do that. Yeah.
Judaism, and then maybe like some like Sikhism, Hinduism, like and kind of parse out some of the like key ideas. Because I think one thing that's true, I think, of all, I'm gonna use religions, but let's just use that. We'll use that word, but right, is like this idea of like what is the explanation for why we're here? What are we supposed to do while we're here? And what are the consequences of that? Of like what comes after, right? Like that's every religion is kind of in a sense like answering those like key ideas, right? Like why are we here? Where do we come from? Why are we here? What are
Hmm.
we supposed to do while we're here? And then what comes after? Right, those three things, and there's subtlety and differences to that.
Yeah.
um but it's kind of like important, right? Because here's like an ultimate question, like anyone can answer for themselves. It's like, if you believe that this is not the last chapter and there's something else afterwards, then it's very, from one perspective, you could say it's very important that you then figure out what that next chapter is. Because, like, to your question, if your life, if the next chapter depends on what you do now,
Hmm.
it's very important to know that I need to do something now, right? And whatever that is, like different religion philosophies would say different things for what you need to do now. Like Christianity, the Bible would say like it's not about necessarily what you do because you're limited, right? It's going to be more about like a certain choice you make. Another religion might be like, or philosophy would be like, no, it's about like what you do. Like, we're going to stack up. What did Rob do compared to what did Joe do? And there's an accounting, right? Like certain views would have that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still, regardless of how you answer that question, it's still like one of maybe the more important questions you ask, right? Because again, if your soul is eternal, that means that more time will be spent outside of this earthly coil, right? This mortal coil than in it. So the choices that are gonna like that, the choices you make now will affect that. That you're gonna spend more time in the next chapter than you are in the current chapter. Like it's something we don't really think about. Like we kind of try to like block out death and go about our days trying to win whatever race we're trying to win. And it's kind
Denial.
of like, yeah, it's denial, which makes sense. Like I don't want to think about death.
Neither
But
do I.
if it's not death, if it's not the end, it's just the beginning of something else. And what you do now can affect that. It's a good question to ask. Well, like I need to understand what that next chapter is because I want it, you know, I want the best outcome, right? So it's kind of it's interesting that you brought up that question that was on your mind
Mm-hmm.
because it's
Yeah,
important, right?
but I think I like that idea for futures. We can definitely do a deeper dive into that because that's a whole episode.
I mean, that's a couple
Yeah,
episodes. Like it's
yeah,
like one
multiple.
episode could be about just Buddhism,
Yeah,
a survey
I
of it.
get you.
Another episode
Yeah,
is like on Hinduism. Because again, like I lived in India for a while, and like I'll be honest with
we
you,
should talk about that. We haven't really did an episode about.
when we do Hinduism, we can talk
Mhm.
because I honestly I talked to maybe like 3 or 4 people who gave me the best answer I've gotten on what Hinduism is was from a taxi cab driver in New York. Like to be honest with you,
Wow.
because you talk to a bunch of people and like they give you 1,000 different things. You're like, I don't like. Okay, none of you are agreeing with each other. I don't understand. And the guy leaving our Juno job drove me home, and he explained it, and I was like, oh, dude, that's the best explanation. I never best explanation I ever understood.
Oh yeah.
So it
So
shows
yeah,
you,
park that.
yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. All right.
All right. So what else we got? We got a couple more things
We
before we
got
wind this episode.
yeah, we got one more thing. We got 308 UFC 308 tomorrow in Riyadh, Saudi
Yes.
Arabia. All right.
Oh, dude, there was another thing I wanted to talk
Yeah.
about. We can talk about it maybe next time.
What was it? What was it?
Dude, I did not realize until this week that there was a thing that betting on politics had just become like
Yeah.
legal.
I was completely unaware of that. I had no
I
idea.
didn't know, and then I hear on a bunch of different places people keep mentioning. I think it's Kashi or something. This website where like now people, when you listen to them talk about politics, they refer to the betting markets. And I was like, what is the betting markets?
Oh, like
Literally, there are people bet right now. You can find out what the current stats are, like sports betting, on if like who will win, and I think not even just the presidency, but like different roles. And there's like money on the line, millions of dollars are on the line. It's crazy to me. It's crazy. Like to me, some part it boggles my mind. I'm surprised it was not happening before, given that people love to bet and gamble. But just the fact that like I don't know. It's just to me, it's just like it's crazy. It's like the world is a weird place.
I know. So it's not just the polls. It's the odds makers think this. Yeah, that is strange.
Correct. So like now you could have people who are professional, like odds makers, bet analysts on politics specifically, which is kind of funny because it shows you what politics kind of really is. Like it's no different than any other form of gambling, right? It's like two people are trying to win a race, play a game. Why can't I bet on who's going to win? Like it's no different.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know. We can talk about that another day.
Yeah, that's a big topic because the way gambling has infiltrated the culture of, especially in America, is wild.
Dude, every podcast I go on is sponsored by a sports betting application. Yeah, that's kind of crazy to me. Yeah. But yeah, let's talk about UFC real quick.
So, I mean, you know about this the Shara, am I pronouncing this right? Magomedov. This guy, he's the first on the main card.
I'm pulling it up.
He's the guy that's like half blind.
Okay. Oh yeah. I think it's Magomedov.
Magomedov. All right.
Okay. So we got. Oh man, do we have Cyril Gond? Oh, I got canceled. That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Or he might still fight.
The
But anyway,
only fights I really know about are Whitaker, Kamzat, and then the main event. My
yeah,
guy Topuria is my favorite guy right now,
yeah.
and
So let's
how
say, okay, so the Magomedov,
yeah
that's the blind guy. You know
yeah
he's fighting if it's a Saudi Arabia card or a Middle Eastern card
yeah
because he can't legally fight in America.
right, and because he can only see out of one eye, you said
He's
yeah.
literally blind out of the other eye, which you can't.
Uh,
So that'll be interesting. I don't know, man. He's 14-0.
I've never seen
So
him fight. Like,
I
what's
think
your?
that's. I think I saw him fight once. He's like I believe he's a predominantly a striker. So I don't know who he's fighting against. So I don't know. That I'm gonna leave that one as a question mark. That's gonna be
Yeah,
just fun to watch.
it says fighting style MMA, and the other guy he's Armenian. He's Muay Thai, so he's
Okay.
more kickboxing. Yeah,
All right. So then we have featherweight, Lerone Murphy. I think he's British, and Dan Ige. I have no idea. Like I've seen Dan Ige fight. He's been around a long time. I don't know if I've ever seen Lerone Murphy fight.
no,
Question mark. Don't know
it's
the answer.
another. I don't know him. He's a boxer. He's a striker. Yeah,
Yeah.
and
All right. Now let's get into like the last three.
yeah,
These people,
these
these are the
people I know
fights.
about. Yeah,
All right. So we have Magomed Ankalaev. This is a
yeah,
heavyweight, light heavyweight. So
yeah.
this is 205. This would be these people would be fighting Pereira. Yeah,
But yeah.
next. So the winner of this is probably going to fight him next. I don't know, man. Magomed is supposed to be like the beast. So
He looks scary. I'm looking at his profile right now.
he is. I believe he is.
He's Russian. It says.
He's. I think he's where like Khabib. He's from the same part of the world. Wrestler, can strike. I think he's predominantly a wrestler. I don't know. All right, you make a bet, and then I'll bet the opposite on that one.
I'm always gonna take the scary looking Russian guy.
Right.
That guy, especially like you said, he's looks like he's the Muslim Russian,
Yes.
like from like
I
that
like
part.
here, like those are the Russians are scary.
Those are the
Muslim Russians
are on another level. Look at all of them.
Yeah.
Look at all of them.
It's like
It's a good.
it's
I'm
like
complimenting.
in a Street Fighter game. It's like you're like,
Yeah, I'm picking that
it's
guy.
like you fight that you're like American versus. I'm a little scared.
Yeah.
Then the Russians like, you know who I'm scared of? Muslim Russians.
Exactly.
All right, so you take that. All right, cool. I'll take Alexander Rakic. I think it could be a toss up. It'll be interesting to see. All right, the two fights I care about are the last two.
Yeah, that's what I said.
So Robert Whitaker and Khamzat Chimaev.
Also a big veteran. Whitaker's been around a long time too.
Dude, look how many wins he has. 27 wins.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And
7 losses, but it's still he's 20 wins. Oh, it's
Yeah.
crazy. 27 wins. What do you got on this one?
So in terms of personal preference, like I can speak to a little more intelligently
Okay.
than the other ones. So I like Whitaker. I've seen him fight like 2 times. I've seen 2 fights. He's more of a striker, right? Like striker
Yeah.
style. Australian guy, seems like he has a cool personality. And I always like the seasoned veterans. He's seen it all. This is going to be his 3rd fight this year alone.
That's crazy. Yeah.
And he's won the first 2 already. So, but who did he beat? Were they good? He won.
Anyone he fights is going to be good because he's so high in the rankings. I think he's like 2 or 3.
Yeah, in the contenders.
Like he's not going to fight too far down. So they're like 4 or 5. They're going to be top 10 every time.
I mean, his only 2 losses in the last 5 years. You ready for the names?
Yeah, I know.
Duplessis and Israel.
Yeah.
So, I mean, come on. This guy is pretty nasty. He's pretty dangerous.
Correct. Yeah, I think this is going to be an interesting fight. Yeah. I like Rob Whitaker. I like his personality. I think he's like him, a good guy for someone I never met. Chimaev, he's just funny, man. He's just a scary guy. Again, Muslim Russian.
Like, these guys are insane because they have the beards. Dude. They all have the beards.
The beard with the no mustache is striking. It's a very striking look.
Yeah.
It is like it's just like, come on, guys, grow a mustache, pull it all together.
Yeah.
But
yeah, these guys.
No judge. But it'll be interesting. I remember Hamza. He's just a wild card, man. I remember he did something I'd never seen before. For when he fought, I forget who he fought. He fought someone in the top 10, and he went on. He got his walkout was first, and then he jumped up on the side of the cage and sat there while his opponent had his walk in. So literally, his opponent is walking into
Oh
the
wow.
cage, and he's sitting like a superhero, like a boss in a video game on the octagon
On the
wall.
on like the like the padding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like up on it. Like he
Yeah.
had to jump up, and he's sitting on the top of it. Like, it was hilarious. It was like, this is such a badass
Yeah.
thing.
I liked him. I haven't seen him fight. Um because he's only fought once in the last 2 years. He has one fight against Usman,
Yeah.
and he beat him. Which is a big win. That's a big win.
It was a big win, but it wasn't like he slaughtered him. So who knows? This will be an interesting fight. It's five. I think it's 5 rounds.
This one is it's a co-main event. This one is 5.
So that'll be fun. All right, final.
I'm picking Kazmat, even though I like Whitaker more.
All right, I'll do Whitaker then.
Yeah.
I got you on that one.
Yeah.
All right, because I think it's a toss-up. Like Whitaker could get housed, or he could just lay a smackdown. I think it's going to be the better fight of the two main events. All right.
Now,
final.
I think Taporia just crushes Holloway, even no disrespect to Holloway.
Oh, this will be interesting. I think the odds are probably like, I bet you when we look at the stats when it comes out, the odds.
I have the odds right now if you want them.
Is he the favorite?
Taporia is minus 260, yes, and he's the favorite, and Holloway's plus 210. That's a pretty big discrepancy for a main event for the main.
So, dude, can you explain to me real quick, like betting odds? Like, what does that mean?
So, odds are based. So the betting line is set at the beginning, and then it fluctuates based on who's betting on what. So throughout tonight and tomorrow morning, it could fluctuate based on what people are hearing, because sometimes you hear things like, oh, Taporia didn't sleep well last night, or Holloway ate something bad and he has a little bit of food poisoning, or there's always some dark arts going on.
So is that a percentage? Is like is the minus 260? Is that
minus
260%?
Minus 260 means, I believe it means, I could be wrong, if you bet $100, you get 26% of it, so you get less. Whereas if you bet Holloway at plus 110, if I bet $100, I get I get $310. I believe that's how it works. It's based on the unit is the baseline unit is $100 bet. So I think if you take Taporia and you put $100 on him, you get, it's minus 260. So you take off, you only get like 70. You win $74. I think. Okay. I think that's how the math works.
So of the two guys, who do you have? I'm taking Max.
I could be wrong on that, but I believe that's how it works. Yeah. I'm definitely. I mean, who I'm taking. I'm taking Ilya, man. I'm taking the Georgians. The Georgians, who I also like. I love the Muslim Russians and the Georgians. They're crazy.
Which of them trumps the other one? Like if it's a Georgian versus the Muslim Russian, who do you got?
That's a coin flip for me, man. I don't even know what to do.
Who's the baddest of the bad?
Yeah, yeah. Do you think at all? Do you think Holloway should go up in weight?
Well, he did. When he fought Gaethje, he fought at 155.
Yeah, I think he belongs in a higher weight class. So I'm going to Taporia.
I don't know how any of these guys are. Like, think about this. Like, Max Holloway is. Let's see how tall he is. I want to say he's 5'10".
He's 5'11". I'm looking at it.
Damn. Well, okay. On Google, it's 5'9". But let's say he's 5'10".
No. The official the official UFC lists him at 5'11". So it's
So dude, you're 145 pounds. That's like not healthy.
Yeah, I know. It's way too. That's a toothpick, man.
And the thing is this: it's like this guy. I was like listening to him. He was talking on another podcast. Like he walks around at like 175, maybe 180 at times. So it's like these guys cut so much weight. Like it's probably not good for you. Like that's why when you listen to them, like leading up to if you listen to like any interview Max Holloway or Chimaev or Robert Whitaker has done this week, you can tell they're not like feeling good. Like you could tell, like you just watch them. Like look at the video of Robert Whitaker and Hamzat weighing in. Look at them. Like look at their bodies, and then just go Google them. Like go look for pictures of them. they are so depleted because like they're fighting at 185, I believe.
Yeah, because
Neither of these guys are 185.
I know
They walk around over 200 pounds.
it's crazy.
So like think about that. Like they're dropping over 30 pounds. Like imagine right now if like in the course of a month or 3 weeks you drop 35 pounds, 30 pounds. Like dude, it's just funny. Like it's not good for you. Like,
It's
just
not good because you
It's
can
not good
see
for you.
like even Holloway, you can see his ribs.
Yeah,
He's
you can
not.
see
Yeah.
you can see their face. You
Yeah.
just know that like their brains are on fire. Like they just want like they need nutrition and water.
I know.
But yeah, all right, cool. That all right.
Taporia, definitely.
So you got Taporia,
Yeah.
you have Chimaev, and then you have Magomed Ankalaev.
Yes.
All right, cool. All right, we'll see what happens with that.
But I do like Whitaker. Shout out. He has my name. Shout out Bob Whitaker, baby. My guy. I like him,
Yeah.
but I gotta go with Kamzat on that one.
All right, well, we'll find out. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this was a longer episode. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll get you back next week.
Peace.